Thank you. It is wonderful to see everyone, and I want to thank the Asian American Collegiate Alliance Committee for putting together this amazing event today. I have been so inspired, and as an Asian American, incredibly proud of what Utah has here locally. I've been inspired with energy and hope, watching all the speakers, watching all the performers, and how they're capturing the theme of unity, community, and celebration. And I am also proud, for those of you who don't know me, to be a lifelong Utahn. I come to Utah by way of adoption. I was adopted from South Korea when I was 3 years old. And so growing up in a white family as an Asian is a unique experience, and some of you may know a little bit about my story. I will say for many years growing up that I did not feel like I was part of the Asian community. In the summer of 1999, I was selected for an internship spot at South Korea's largest law firm, Kim & Chong, for 2 months. I was thrilled for this opportunity to visit and to work in my home country. The only trick was getting from the Seoul airport to my residence in one place without knowing how to speak any Korean. So this was 22 years ago, you can imagine. Google Maps, Google Translator did not exist, and I was in Korea all alone, and I was terrified, and I cried in my room for the whole first day. That summer, I spent my days working with the most successful lawyers in Korea and my nights wandering Seoul with friends. And it seemed like every Asian woman was beautiful. I had grown up thinking I was not attractive. The technology was so advanced. I watched grandmas in the subway watching their Korean dramas on mobile devices. This was in 1999. And I thought I was tech savvy with my first flip phone, right? And the genius in Korean mass transit and architecture is stunning, and I came back to the US with new knowledge about my cultural roots and pride in the Korean people. 2 years ago, I went back to South Korea to meet my Korean birth family for the first time. I was 44 years old, and I had never met anyone who was biologically related to me except for my own children. And even though I had been to Korea before, it was the first time I felt emotionally connected to Korea in a way that I cannot describe. And there are moments when I feel homesick now. So it comforts me. I'm wearing a necklace that was given to me by my aunt today when I first met her. I love hearing from the young speakers because, like you, there were many times growing up where I did not always understand my identity. I didn't feel that being Asian was valued, and it impacted me throughout my life. It may surprise you that there are over 242,000 Asian children who have been adopted to the United States from 1953 to 2016. This includes 115,000 Korean children and 93,000 Chinese children. That's basically enough humans to populate a mid-sized city in the United States. Most adoptees experience assimilation into white families, but definitely the model minority myth is applied to them in many, many ways. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's important to understand how childhood trauma, loss of culture, racism, and discrimination have impacted Asian adoptees. Transracial adoptees experience anxiety, depression, and suicide at 4 times the rate of the normal population. So mental health is an important aspect of how we raise our Asian children. And with so many more Asians experiencing anxiety right now, it is important for all of us to take care of our mental health. I'm appreciative to Senator Romney and all 4 of our state representatives, Congressman Curtis, Stewart, Owens, and more, for supporting the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. Did you know that there are thousands of adoptees who are not granted automatic citizenship due to their adoptive parents not completing certain legal steps? So not only are they children having to be raised in a different country, but later as full-grown adults trying to understand, why am I not a U.S. citizen? I'm so appreciative to Congressman John Curtis, who sponsored the Adoptee Citizenship Act in the House of Representatives this year. And there's also a dual bill in the Senate. So I hope all of our Utah congressional leaders will support in favor of this bill. And also, I'm very excited to say that Utah State Senator Janie Iwamoto filed a bill to support international adoptee citizenship for this next general Utah legislative session. So I want to thank our national and our local leaders for caring about international adoptees. I've also been thrilled that Utah Governor Cox, Mayor Mendenhall, and so many civic and business leaders recently signed the Utah Compact on Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Business leaders are so critical to creating cultures where all of us can thrive in our careers. I've spent my career in industries where I'm often the only woman or person of color in the room. And now, as diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, I get to work with many executive teams who are creating more inclusive workplaces. But we still have some work to do. Asians tend to be more highly represented in professional roles, but ironically, we're highly underrepresented in leadership roles, even though Asians are the most educated community. Think about our tech companies. Google reports that 42% of its employees are Asian, but only 30% of leadership is Asian. And you rarely hear about Asian employee affinity groups, right? Even with the majority of our top companies having chief diversity officers, the percentage of people who are people of color in top companies who are CEOs is less than 8%. Board leadership is another area where there's a massive gap. The percentage of women in Fortune 500 boards has increased to 37% in 2021, but people of color are still highly underrepresented. Asians, with 7% of the US population, hold the least number of board seats, with less than 4%. And when you intersect both gender and race, white women hold over 20% of corporate board seats now. Asian women hold only 1% of board seats. We like to tell ourselves that Asians don't have disadvantages. The nation is now more aware of our presence, even though Asians have been in the United States for over 178 years. I like to remind people that Asians are the global majority, and we've always accomplished great things. Thank you to all of the allies who are here, who are watching and standing in solidarity with the Asian community. The best thing you can do is to love us and see us as complex human beings. There's no one story or stereotype that can possibly capture the richness and depth of what it means to be Asian. We are so much more than our loss and sorrow. We are worth knowing, loving, and celebrating. Utah needs Asians to stay visible and included in the conversation about our future growth. It is such a wonderful time to be Asian. Thank you for including me in this amazing event. Let's keep shining our light.